Okay, I'm just going to try to, I will try to speak as loud as I can. Uh, okay, right, I'm showing my screen now. Okay, great. So yeah, I'm Aluko Brown. I'm a product designer. I work with Quidax. Quidax is a cryptocurrency exchange platform based in Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah, I lead the product design team. By extension, I lead the design team. It's a pretty small design team, honestly, so it's not so much of a big deal. But yeah, like I mentioned, I've been doing design for a bit. I've worked on a number of products that you might be familiar with in Nigeria, like the rebrand and the redesign of the PiggyVest app, and a bunch of other products. Like that's probably the ones that you guys might be more familiar with. Right, a number of other products within the fintech space and tech space generally. So now I also teach at Student. Student is a graduate accelerator program in Nigeria that I teach UI UX design. So most of what I will be teaching you guys today are things that I've taught some of my students like in the last couple of weeks. And I would, as much as possible, try to, when I teach UI UX, I try to move away from, when I teach design generally, I try to move away from screens or digital products or, whatever it is that you guys are more familiar with, right? I try to use examples of real life products, right? Think about a bottle, think about a screen, think about a toilet paper, anything whatsoever. Things are designed, everything that you see around is designed, right? If you're working as a digital product designer, right, which is like the actual description of what you would do, right, you would just be focused on designing digital products, all right. Whereas every other thing that you use, if it's a car, if it's a chair, they are designed, right? So I would like you to think about design from that broad perspective, right? So moving into it now, at the end of this class, you'll be familiar with a bunch of things around understanding what user interface design is, understanding what user experience design is, and a number of heuristics that I call. And usability heuristics are pretty much things that help us get familiar, help us know that we've done a good job when we are designing a product, right? To say, if I'm using a product, right, it should have a number of things that are as qualities that help me use the product effectively, right? So I'm going to walk you guys through some of those things. And if we have enough time, I hope we do. I'm just going to show you guys how to start a project in Figma. I use Figma for most of my projects. I use a bunch of other tools as well, but Figma is pretty easy to use. So I'm just going to show you guys how to start, how to put a lot of some of the considerations that you put in place when you're trying to design a product, right? Okay. So like Daryl mentioned, you guys are been familiar with some tools like design thinking, like user experience design and user research, right? So I'm just going to build up on all of those and try to take it up from there, right? Starting with user interface design, right? User interface design is a very interesting thing because usually anytime you hear UI UX, it's usually like UI and UX, like user interface and user experience, right? Combined and working intertwined, right? There you hardly or rarely hear people talk about user interface alone or user experience alone. People mostly talk about them together. But of course, they are different, right? It's user interface and user experience. It is the and that's joining them together. And there's a reason that the and is joining them together. And I'll try and explain, right? Now, user interface is, think about, like I mentioned, think about a car. For example, this car that's on my screen. Think about this car, right? This is like the dashboard of a car, a very old car. There's the steering, he has the gear, he has the stereo and a bunch of other things like that, right? Where you can interact, you can move the steering, you can, you can pretty much do a lot of different things with the things that you're looking at in front of you, right? And that is what an interface is, right? An interface is a point where two systems meet and interact. So your hand if you want to drive a car, you have to grab the steering, you have to use your leg to, press the stuff that you're going to press, use your change the gear and all of those other things that you have to do, right? That is the interface. That is you interacting with the interface of a car. Think about it as well. You have a TV, right? You have a television set. You have a remote that you interact with to control or just operate the television. You have a water bottle, right? You have a water bottle, and the water bottle it has an interface. That's the body where you hold to. You have a cap where you unscrew to drink your water. So there are interfaces everywhere. Every product that you design, anything, whether it's physical or digital product, would always have an interface, right? Now, pushing it further down or narrowing it further down to digital products now, right? There are for any product you're going to use, they are digital, they are interfaces, right? You have your Spotify, you have all of the buttons, all of the pages and the different sections and the different cards that you have to click on and, that help you get to what you need to get done, right? You have your Twitter app, you have the interface of Twitter app, you have your Snapchats, your Instagram, they all have interfaces, right? It is that interface that you use, right, to operate or carry out what you want to carry out on that product, right? And it's important to also mention that for any product that you are building or that you are designing, right? By build and design is a vital part of building, right? Now, for any product we are building, right, it's important that you clearly and adequately optimize the interface, right, so that people are able to use the product appropriately. Now, if your interface is bad, if it's not working, if it's not appealing, right, it has an effect on the bottom line. What's the bottom line is the fact that people will not be able to use your product, and if you're unable to use your product, there's no way you can monetize the product, right? So it's a ripple effect, right? So whatever product we are building, it's important for you to understand that the interface is a very, very vital part of that product, right? So you need to pay a lot of attention to building that interface, right? Now, there are a lot of design principles, right, and design elements that are involved in building an interface, right? We won't go into all of that, but because if we start that, we might not be able to finish that in this class. But now, all of those things come together: the principle of balance, principle of color, and how to use color as an element, rather, principle of, white space, all of those different things come together, right, to help you form your interface. So you draw a rectangle, you clip an image in it, and it forms a card, that you have the text on, and you have different things that you have on your interface, right? They all work together to help you and your users obviously use the product, right? So it's important to understand that interfaces are so important. Now, you're wondering why? Okay, just to go over the definition of user interface again. User interface is design of interfaces for machine, software, computers, and other with a focus on maximizing usability and user experience, right? And this is the part I'm going to dwell on a bit, right? Just to underscore the point, right? To say that the last part of the definition says that with the focus on maximizing usability and the user experience, right? Which means that usability and user experience are so heavily dependent on how well designed your interface is. Right, usability, how people are able to use your we are still going to talk about some usability heuristics and how you measure that you've done a good job when you're designing a product, right? But usability, your how well your product works, right? How people are able to use your product and your experience using your products, right, is largely dependent on how well designed your interface is, right? So your interface, as you can see now, we have Google search page, you have Spotify, and a bunch of other screens here, right? They are passing some messages across, right? We see that based on a number of reasons, you can get to this interface and you can use the interface. There's some form of interaction, right? You can read. There is a part where you can type in your request, whatever you want to search. You can interact with that interface easily, right? And that is a huge part of the experience, right, that product, confers on you, right? The kind of experience that you have using that product is largely determined by the interface of that product. So when you design interfaces or surfaces or interfaces of products, of machines, of softwares, or any kind of product, really, the focus should be on helping your users be able to use the product, right? And maximizing usability and the user experience. All right. So these are some things that you should know that are very important that you should know about UI design, right? UI design is largely visual design, right? So it's important that you understand the basic principles of design, right? UI design, whatever it is. So I tell people that UI design is probably one of the lowest hanging fruits in tech rather, right? Because it's a lot easier to master, right, than a lot of other technical parts of tech, right? The tech space. If you master, I mean, if you're a graphic designer, myself as a person starting as a graphic designer, it was easy for me to transition into UI design or into being a UI UX designer, right? Because a lot of the things that are known as a graphic designer were still the things that I was using as a UI designer, right? Those things were still very important. So the basic principles of design will always be very useful and very helpful when you move or when you're trying to design your user interfaces. The balance, all of those principles pretty much, right, are the things that will help you do a good job when you're designing your product, right? So think about it. So most of those principles talk about proximity and the goal of those principles are for you as a designer to, I mean, when you're talking about visual design now, I'll say graphic design, the goal is for you to be able to communicate properly, right, such that users are able to use or maybe interact with whatever it is that you're designing. So you're designing a flyer, right, social media flyer, or you're designing a poster or a banner, right, and people are going to drive across and are going to interact with the information that is on that design, right? It's important for you to know that those principles exist to guide how you are going to use the element that you're using on that design, right, to achieve the goal of you putting out that design, right? So the same thing goes for UI design, right? So if you're going to create UI design screens, if you're going to design any product, design the interface of any product, right? It's important for you to know that your visual design skill, right, which is built on your understanding of the basic principles of design, are very, very important. All right. Next thing is your sense of aesthetics is very important, right? And this is something that is usually quite debated. Some people will tell you function over aesthetics, right? They will tell you that the product has to work well, and that's the most important thing. It doesn't have to be pretty and all of that stuff. Yeah, while there are products that have probably say dated interfaces, right? I mean, in terms of they're not so pretty or they're not so 2020-ish in outlook, right? We discover that it's just one out of several products, right, that are surviving without good aesthetics. A lot of the products that are doing well now in the space all over the world are products that have a very, very well designed aesthetics, right? Their aesthetics pretty much talks about how good looking, right, the interface of the product is, right? Oh, how well put together is the composition of this entire product? Oh, the colors, is it working well with the type? Is there a good balance between the colors, the type, and the space, and the imagery, or the iconography, or the illustrations, and all of the different things that are used to make up that product, right? So as a UI designer, or as a designer trying to create user interfaces, right, it is important for you to know that your sense of aesthetics is very, very important. You have to get used to good designs. You have to get used to beautiful designs, and not just good design. Good design is both a design that works well and looks good, right? You have to also get used to the fact that your design has to look good, It does not. It can. Your design should not look cluttered. Your design should not look muddled up. Right. Your design should not look ugly. Should not look dated. Right. You should not be pushing out a design in 2020, 2021, and it looks like something that was designed in 2001 or 2010. Right. So your sense of aesthetics is very, very important. So you have to, and one of the things I encourage young designers to do is to practice a lot, right? You have to practice a lot, right? And how do you practice? Oh, there are a lot of challenges online, daily UI challenge. I mean, those things are not probably for you to be the best designer in the world, but rather for you to own your skills, your sense of visual aesthetics, your sense of how beautiful, how do you combine colors with, how do you balance space, how do you use this kind of type, how do you combine this icon, so you need to work up your sense of aesthetics. You need to be able to know what a good design looks like, a good looking design in this case, right? uh, um as a designer, I mean, I've known Dribble for the longest time, and every time before I start a project, there's something called creating a mood board that I do. I create mood boards every time, right? And my mood boards consist of projects that have been done by a designer in the UK, in Sweden, and in different parts of the world, right? I just pick different things, try to get myself familiarized with how good looking my design can be, right? I try to stay on top of trends, right? Sometimes to say, okay, oh, this is something cool that that designers are trying to do now, right? And I want to try to achieve some of those things, right, and make my design look good as well. And why this thing is also important is um, because the users you are going to be creating your product for are people who use a lot of other products, right? They I mean, an average person, right, in a day or in a month would have used, say, 10 to 15 different products, if not more. An average young person, let me put this in proper context, would have used 10 to 15 products, if not more, in a month, right? So every day your users keep, I mean, talking about digital products now, your users keep getting themselves familiarized with other products. They keep using Google, keep using Instagram, keep using Twitter, keep using a lot of different products. So and all of these products keep updating what the interfaces look like. They keep trying to improve what the quality of the interface looks like, right? A few weeks ago, LinkedIn updated their interface, right? They changed their, so now all of these things are to keep your interface up to date, right? Now, as a designer, it's important for you to know what's going on, to know what does good looking mean, or what could good looking look like in 2020, right, as against 2010, right? So your sense of aesthetics is very important. You need to be able to make pretty UIs, right? Okay. Lastly, I mean, of course, these are not all just all the things about UI design, but these are just the things that the time that I have allows me to talk about, right? Attention to detail is very, very important. As a designer, you cannot do well as a designer. More importantly, with special emphasis on user interface designer, you cannot do well as a user interface if you don't work up your attention to details. So you need to work up your attention to detail, right? So if you've learned anything about design, right? If you learned all of the principles, if you learned all of the elements that you can use to make good designs, right? It is very, very important that you pay attention to all of those things every time you're trying to design. It is very, very important. Attention to detail is very important, and attention to detail will help you create the most functional interfaces for your product, right? Attention to detail will help you create the most interesting and appealing interfaces for your product, because you're not missing out on some typographical error, or you're not mixing out on some spatial error, or you're not mixing out on a lot of errors that you should pay attention to. So as a designer, as a UI designer, or as a designer working on user interfaces, right, it is important that you pay attention to detail. It is very, very super important, right? Okay, so these are some of the things that you should pay attention to as a user interface designer, right? Let's quickly talk about what user experience is. Uh, um, so now we talked about the fact that when you are interacting with products, right, you do so with with the interfaces of those products, right? You are swiping through WhatsApp, right? Your experience, and I'm going to try and explain what experience design or what user experience means now. Your experience with WhatsApp is determined by all of the different actions that you can take using the interface of WhatsApp, right? So you're looking at the interface of WhatsApp, you're trying to, interact with it, you're trying to press this, press that. All of those things, whether they work well, whether they don't work well, whether your goal or not, all of those things are things that, accumulate into forming your experience, right? So now, user experience typically, right, is defined as an event or occurrence which leaves an impression on someone, right? So you walk into a room, you meet someone new, and after talking to them for a few minutes, you can make some deduction about them, or they leave some sort of impression on you, right? The same way you use a product, you use a product and you do not understand what to do, you do not understand how to navigate through the products, you don't even understand what next, what to do, and you don't even understand how to achieve the goal that you came to achieve on that product, right? All of those things are things that determine your experience, right? So that's why you can see that user interface and user experience design are so intertwined, are so used interchangeably, because every time you try to design an interface, right, you are subconsciously determining the experience that users would have when they're using that product. Right? So there's a whole lot of things around using your interface, right, to customize or to create an experience for your users. So the sum total, right, of how you feel after you've interacted with the product, after you've met with after you've used the product, is what your experience is, and that's what user experience really is about, right? Now, because you guys have talked about the user research and design thinking and all of that, I'm not going to do so much on this, but well, it's important that research, I'm going to get there. Research is a very important step in understanding in creating a great user experience. I'll still get there. Now, let me just quickly talk about, let me just quickly address these two, this Venn diagram and this other chart on this side, right? And create a relationship between them and what user experience is, right? Now, so starting from here, right? User experience is it's usually a three-part thing, right? There's the information, there's the user needs, and the business goals. And I will explain, right? I will explain. So starting with business goal, right? So this company wants to create the largest, maybe wants to be the largest provider of, say, maybe it wants to be the largest savings and investment platform in Africa, right? So they want people to be able to be able to save and invest on their platform. That is their goal. They want people to be able to save easily. They feel like, okay, everybody should be able to make savings. This is 2020, people should be able to, save and, all of that stuff, right? Now, they have a goal, right? And they need to achieve all of those goals. So they are going to do a number of things, put together some things, right? To ensure that users are able to do what they have to do, right? So that they can achieve their goal as a business. Of course, as a business, where they make money, where the business makes money is from the fact that, people use this product and, they pay a particular, say, percentage of the fee, right? That's all the fee that they taking and out, right? And that is how they stay in business, right? Now, the business being able to achieve their goals will mean that users are able to use the product, right? And users being able to use the product means that the business, is getting some revenue of users being able to use the product. So that is one part that makes up the user experience. That is one vital consideration in user experience design, right? Now, the other part is the user needs. So the user needs to, initially when the company was trying to talk about how they're going to make money, they were saying that, we want people to be able to make savings, right? They want people to invest their money, right? Now, that is an example of a user need. So the question is, do users actually really need to save? I mean, the current saving method that they have, is it fine with them? Is it good? Is it okay? Right? If it's not, oh, that means that they have something that they need more, right, and what they currently had, right? That means that you know, so that considering the user needs is you saying that what would the user need to achieve what they want to achieve financially. So if you say, oh, okay, I'm giving them a platform, right, that helps them save and invest, right, effectively, fast, on the go, and all of that stuff, right, that is you attending to their need, right? And you, one thing is, another thing that is important to mention, as I also mentioned later on, is the fact that user need is largely rested or dependent, right, on on user research, right? We're still going to get there, right? The next part is information, right? What is information? This is like the information that you want to present to your users, right? So it's business goals, right? What the business intends to do, right? Is user needs, that's what the things that the users intend to achieve, right? The information is how they are going to achieve those things. More like, oh, what are they going to see? What will prompt them to take this action? You know, or what would our website look like? What would our mobile app look like? Right? You know, so all of those information put together, right? Working intertwined with the understanding of what the business need to achieve, right, as a business, and working intertwined with understanding of what the user needs to achieve as their needs, right, are the things that make up user experience. So whenever you're trying to design user experience, you have to answer these three key questions, right? As a business, what is our goal? What are we trying to achieve by building this product, right? Users, what are they? What's their need? What do they really need to do, right? What are they trying to achieve, right? Then how are we going to present the information to them that helps them achieve all of those things, right? Of course, by extension, helps us as a business achieve our goal as well, right? Those three things working hand in hand together are the things that form the user experience. All right. So now there's the other part to it, and they're like heuristics to user experience. Like these are the things that define what a good user experience should feel like, right? And again, like I mentioned, they are largely connected to what the user interface looks like, right? And mostly, right, the user experience is an intangible thing. It's not like you can hold on to it to say this is what I mean. We'll get there now. So the first one is useful, right? So your product, if the product is going to have a good user experience, it should be useful. That means that it should actually meet a need. It should actually really meet the need. So think about it. If for example, somebody is trying to let's assume, right, in Nigeria now, let's assume that the current banking system in Nigeria is effective, and everybody is banked. I mean, there's nobody that's unbanked. They have access to credit, you know, they have access to everything that they would need from their bank, right? They can make transfers, make deposits, you know, do all of the things that the bank is meant to do for them. They can do them effectively, right? Now, if someone is trying to do something else, right, it has to be an improvement on what exists. If it is not an improvement on what exists, then there's no point doing it in the first place. If it's not useful, if it does not provide a special need or any form of need or any form of does not provide any kind of need, or if users won't find it useful, right? There's no point creating it. So it's just like I'm trying to give you guys, come up with an example that you guys can relate to. But think about this as if a product is not okay, great example. So to the older generation do not find, I mean, talk about the older generation, we're talking about our parents and, you know, people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, right? I say 70s, 80s, because 60s, you know, it's a bit, some of them are catching up, right? If you give them a product like Snapchat, right? Think about it, your 85-year-old grandma, right? You give her a product like Snapchat, you put it on her phone and you ask her to use it. She's not going to find it useful, right? So if there's a way Snapchat is monetized, right? Snapchat will not make any money from the fact that she uses the product because she does not even find the product useful in the first place, right? So as a whole, all of the interface, everything that you've done on Snapchat as a product does not appeal to her in any way because she does not have any need for it. I mean, typically, right? And that is what finding a product useful really means. The next thing is a product being usable. Now, your user experience will be termed good or well done if your product is usable. What do you mean by a product being usable? It means that if let's say I find the product useful, I feel like, okay, this product will actually, based on what you've said to me, this product will solve my problems, right? And I actually want to start using the product. And for some reason, some buttons are not working, or some pages are not loading, or something is not responding. I'm not getting responses based on some reasons, right? That product is not usable. I can't use it. It exists. I find it useful, but it's not usable. I can't use it. I can't. So you can see there's a difference between useful and usable. Useful means that it doesn't solve any problem for me. It's of no use to me, right? Usable is I can actually use it, I can interact with it. Oh, it's actually giving me the appropriate response that it's meant to give, right? So that's the difference between. So when your product is usable, when it is useful and it fulfills all of the other things that we also talk about, right? Then you say the user experience is great. Right now, next is findable, right? Your product should be findable. So a user should be able to find what they are looking for on your product, right? Now, this is largely dependent on something called information architecture, right? In design of information, right, on your product, right? So you've got I start using your product, right? I get into it, I sign up, I do all the things I have to do, but for some reason I can't find what I need to do. I'm able to sign up, I'm able to do a bunch of things, and maybe I'm supposed to find a button that allows me save, or a button that allows me request for something. Think about a cab hailing app, right? I've been able to I find a cab hailing app very useful to me, right? I sign up, I do all of those things I have to do to set up my account, and it's working, right? But for some reason I'm inside and I can't find the button that I need to click on to request for a ride, or what I need to do something. I just can't find something that is going to help me complete an action, right? Then the user experience is bad, right? I'll give an example. We discovered that there was a particular page on the product. So it was a real estate product, and real estate products, we host a lot of information and data for real estate markets professionals to interact with and use, right? And we discovered that for some strange reasons, people are not interacting with a particular page. We just saw that if maybe say just less than 100 interact with this particular page on the web, and it's right there in their front, but for some reason they can't find it. Now we discovered that we carried out some usability testing, and we sat down with a couple of users and we just watched them use the product, and we discovered that it kept missing a particular button, right? So there's a table, right, and beside the table there's a button that leads to you viewing more details about the details on a particular row, right? But for some reason the users were not interacting with that button because the contrast on the button was poor. So they could not find the button, which meant that the button they were unable to move from the current page to the next page, which add more value and more data for them to interact with. Something they were unable to find something, and that really affected their experience. So when we switch things up and we change the color of the button and made it a more conspicuous button, right? Oh, got great feedback. Oh, I didn't know you guys had this thing. Oh, this is great. This is very useful for my business and all of that stuff. So for your user experience to be great, your product, right, or a part of your product or your element or your interface has to be findable. That's to be credible, right? And credibility in your product has to do with the fact that users should be able to solve the problems that they came to solve, right? They need to be able to find credible information, right, that helps them solve a problem. So now, let me give an example. So your product says that if you invest with us, you will get about say 10 to 15%, 10 to 15% returns on your investment of that. Right? Now, but at the end of the day, when people use a product, they discover that they only get about 5% return, right? Your product is not doing what your product says it will do. It is useful, it is usable, it is findable, but it's not credible, right? They are not getting the experience that you've promised them, right, on your product, right? So for people that care about the numbers, they will be like, there's a huge difference between 5% and 10%. So if you promise me 10%, you better deliver 10%, right? So your product has to be credible, it has to be desirable, and this is where we talk about. This is really a good part of what interface, how the interface comes in, right? It has to be desirable. People should feel like using your product. It should be desirable. They should desire to use your product. You should not leave them stressed after going through your interface. You should not leave them stressed after swiping through a bunch of pages on your website, right? It should be accessible, and accessibility is a very big deal in design, right? Accessibility means that people of all age groups, or as much as possible, people that are your target demography, are able to access your product, right? Accessibility is, think about it so that if for some reason there's a particular color that's probably the button, or the color of your action buttons, or probably the color of your background, or whatever it is, people that are colorblind should be able to see that as well, right? So they should not be left out. It should be accessible to every person that stand as your target audience. Another important example of accessibility is the font size, for example, right? So if you use a particular font size and you to design a product, and you give my mom, she won't be able to see. She have to squint and squint and squint and hold her phone before she sees that, right? That's why, that there's a recommended font size for products. I think font size 16, right, for most fonts, right? It varies font to font, but and at that font size, anybody, young or old, that is using your product is able to see and able to assess your product very well. And so if somebody, say, if you have about 100,000 users, and say 20,000 people are adults that fall in a particular adults, like say between age 60 and 80, and for some reasons they cannot, see the font size on your products, you've cut them off being able to access your products. Right? The next thing is valuable. Your product has to be valuable. It means that people should find some value. They should be able to derive some value in your product. That means that something makes them want to. So that even if you introduce some fee or something, they wouldn't mind, paying for that product. Or even if it's a free product, right? They should want to, use that product. It should be valuable to them, right? It should convert some sort of value. Right, so then they should feel like if they've not used the product for a day or something, they should, feel it. Right, so those are the things or the heuristics that make up what user experience is. Right, and like I mentioned, they are closely intertwined with user interface design, right, and with a well-designed interface and a well done user experience design, and with all of the different parts that we've talked about around information, clarifying your information, your business goals and user needs, you can really design a great user experience for your users. Now, a quick definition I'm sure I must have talked about is user experience design is the process of supporting user behavior through usability, usefulness, desirability, and providing interaction in the product. We talked about it in the last slide. Now, these are the things that you should know about user experience. User experience is a natural first step in the design. User research is a natural first step in the design process, right? One thing is common to all the things I've been saying. I've said user interface, I've said user experience, I've said user research. One thing is, right, user. The user is common or constant all through, right? So it means that you have to design for your users. And designing for your users means that you are researching so it is a natural first step in the design process. You have to carry out research, right? You have to know what your user wants. You have to know what the problem, what is even the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So user research is a natural first step in the design process. Another important thing to know is that you are not the user. So testing with real users is an important part of the design process, right? So I see a lot of products where people just put things together and launch and all of that. So I mean, fine, right? There is no one way to building a product, right? But it is so important that you test with users, right? You take testing with users is just as good as taking feedback from users to say, oh, users are using your product. Then you take feedback from them. Oh, what's the experience like? Are you able to carry out your actions? Either you watch them do those things, or you actually ask them questions about the experience, right? So you are not your user. So don't assume that you know it all, like you know what your users need. So you want to design for them, right? By asking them questions. Usability and accessibility are vital parts of your work and process. Again, uh, uh, um, people being able to use your products is really why you're designing the product in the first place, right? People be able to access your product, being able to use the product, right? So you want to ensure that your product is accessible. You want to ensure that your product is usable, right? So usability and accessibility are vital parts of your work process. All right. So I want us to talk about the 10 usability heuristics. I'll give a bunch of examples, right, as I keep going through them, and you will see how in real life products, and all of the examples I've used in these 10 heuristics are examples that you guys must have at some point come across, right? I'm going to try as much as possible to relate it with things that you're familiar with and all of that, right? So please give me a minute. I need to, sorry guys, give me a second. I need to get my charger. My battery is quite low. Just give me a minute. Um, Okay, back guys. All right, so we talk about the 10 usability heuristics, right? And I will try and define why they're important, pretty much just try and define why they're important and just try and give you guys examples about what you do. So the first one we're going to talk about is visibility of system status, right? What does visibility of system status mean, right? Now think about if you turn on your television, right? Turn on your TV. For most TVs, or for a lot of TVs, there's usually like I think I have some messages. Do I? Oh, okay. I'm going to answer some of these questions uh, once we're done. So yeah, we can send all of your questions in. I would answer all of them. I will share links as much as possible as well. Yeah, but you can drop your questions. By the time I'm done with everything, I would answer before we start the practical classes. Practical class rather. Okay, so visibility of system status. Now, so I was given an example of a television. So you turn on your television, and there's a red light in most cases that comes on at the base, right? And then maybe the light goes off, or maybe changes to a particular kind of light, right? That you get familiar with, right? Same thing. Think about if you start a car. So when you start a car, right, the car makes a sound, right? It makes a sound. There's a kind of sound that it makes when it's moving. There's a kind of sound you make when you change your gear and when you're accelerating. You know, or there's a kind of light. So if you press your brake, there's a kind of light that maybe your brake light comes on, So all of those things are pointing to the fact that you are taking an action, or you've taken an action, right, on this system or on this machine or on this product, right? Now, that means that the system is telling you that you've taken an action has been taken on this product, so you should know that this is the status of this system at this time, right? Classic example from this screenshot. So if I'm playing music on my Spotify, my music just keeps playing, and I see a bar that keeps, that keeps progressing to the end of the music. But if for some reason my internet goes off, right? Spotify tells me that I'm offline, and uses 3 different ways to tell me that I'm offline. And the center, I can't see what's meant to be at the center, all of the different things I can see that I can interact with. I can't see them again, right? And it tells me that no internet connection detected. Spotify will automatically reconnect when it detects an internet connection, right? And it tells me here that it's offline. So at this particular time, I know what is happening to the system. I know that, my internet is off, so my music cannot continue playing. So imagine my music just stops playing abruptly. I'm wondering, what's going on? Is it my speaker? Did I press pause or something? Right? So at every point in time we are designing a product, right, it is so important that your users know what is happening on this page per time. Right? They know what page they are on. They know that everything is fine. They know that, okay, this is what happens when, there's no problem. Now, so if for some reason they get lost, maybe, they enter a particular page, it tells them error 404. If for some reason it's some kind of error, we say, error 500, or, so your users need to know the status of the system at every point in time. And that is a very, very important heuristic of usability. Right? So when your user know what's going up, what's happening per time, they are not lost. They are not wondering, what's going on. They are not wondering what to do next. They know what to do next. They know, okay, my internet is off, so let me do this. Same thing with your car, right? So if for some reason you're driving your car and your car just stops abruptly, right? You are wondering, what's going on? You want to, so your users always have to know what is going on with the system per time. And that is the first usability heuristics, visibility of system status. Right? The second is match between system and the real world. And this is a very important thing that you should, as a designer, it's important that you know this, right? If you, let's look at this example, right? This is a card, right? This is a card on a fintech app, right? That simulates a real life ATM card or a real life debit card or credit card, whatever card it is. For all you care, this is not a real card. This is not a real card. In fact, this could be a digital card or a virtual card or something. It might not be a real card, or it might just be simulating the balance, what's in your account balance, right? Now, this card, because you know the way ATM cards look like, and you get to this product and you see this, you instinctively as a user know that, okay, this has something to do with my ATM card or what my ATM card does, or whatever the role of my ATM card is, right? So you kind of know, because there's a match between what happens in the real world and what's happening in the system, right? I'm going to give another example, right? Look at this visibility toggle that's on this card, right? Visibility toggle is a high, like one high being crossed, right? But if you click on it and it changes to it lift off that cross of the high, right? Now, if you are a user and you're using this for the very first time, the most common place this is used is probably in hiding your password. Maybe you're typing your password and you want to hide or reveal your password, right? If you're using this for the very first time, the fact that the eye thing just makes a lot of sense because you're looking at the eye and you interact with it and it just makes sense to you that, oh, okay, this is to hide and this is to review. The same way you close your eyes and the same way you open your eyes, right? So you are using subtle cues, right, to match between what's going on in your system, right, and what happens in the real world. And that, in a lot of ways, help your users understand and be able to use a product. Because there's a great match between what happens normally in the real world and what is happening in the system, what they are looking at on the system. Right? So another usability heuristics is in your when you're designing your products, right? Ensure that a lot of the things that you're going to use as elements, right, are things that as much as possible bear some relation with what happens on in real life. So users are not don't get it and they are lost and they are wondering what's happening. Oh, what is this? Oh, how do I, Now the thing is, because every single day, every designers try to as much as possible create products that people can use and products that people find useful and all of that. So there's a lot of innovation things that are happening and all of that with different design patterns and elements. But one thing is very important, right? Which is that as a user, as a designer, you want to consider some of the things that users are used to in real life, right? You want to consider those things and present those things to your users in the interface so that it is easy for them to get used to the message and what you're trying to pass across. So that that's matching between system and the real world. All right. Okay. Moving on. User control and freedom, right? One other thing that is very important to do is to give your users good level of control, right, and freedom, right? And it is because, again, it's as designers, whether any kind of designer that you are, more importantly as a UI designer, as a UX designer, or as a product designer, right, you are designing for people. You are designing for users, right? So one way or the other, whether you like it or not, rather, those users are the ones keeping you business. They are the ones putting the food on your table, right? I keep telling people that, right? It's the moment you understand the fact that users are the ones actually feeding you, is the fact that you are creating products that they find someone keeps eyeing you, right? To create other products that people also find useful. Now, if you can't create a product that people find useful, right, it's as good as, you're useless. So it's important that when you're designing your products, as good as you give the users control and freedom while they're using your products. Give them things that help them, achieve. Make it easy for them to do what they have to do. But also make it easy for them to undo things. Make it easy for them to do and because honestly, and this is the honest truth, users are king, right? They are the ones you're designing for, right? So you need to give them control and freedom while using the product. And a classic example is this Google user interface, right? This Gmail interface, rather. Now, you get to this part and you delete a particular mail, but the mail doesn't get deleted. Like it gets deleted from the primary mailbox and all of that, but it doesn't just get thrown out. Because for some reason, I just feel like some users might just wake up, that thing I deleted it by error. So I want to go back and go and undo the delete. Right? So right from here, after deleting something, you can undo what you've done, undo the damage that you've done, undo the delete, or or undo the action that you've taken, right? Because you changed your mind. Same thing, the same reason why there's Control Z or Command Z on most computers, on most softwares, because users want to give users freedom to control what they are doing. So when you delete, you don't want to just make what you deleted permanent. You want to give them, an extra leverage to say, okay, you can undo what you've done. Right? Same with this example. So you published an article, right? But you can undo publishing that article. So you have some freedom. No, you're not boxed to say, oh, once you've published it, oh, that's the end for life. Oh, your article is out there. You can't take it down. You can't do this. You can't do that. Right? So there are subtle cues. There are things that you put in your interface or in your design that helps your user, that gives the user control and freedom over the product. Right? Consistency and standards. So there are two kinds of consistencies. There's internal consistency and there's external consistency. And I will explain what the difference between each of the two, right? Now, internal consistency would mean that I don't get to, I get a particular page on your product, and I'm seeing some kind of icons, or I'm seeing some kind of text, or I'm seeing the particular font, I'm seeing some kind of colors, and I get to another page and I see something different completely. I'm thrown off. Now, one thing you need to understand is for every time a user is coming in contact with your product or with a page on your product for the first time, they start the process of learning to use that product. They start the process of learning to interact with that product. So if I'm on Jumia.com, for example, because I've used Jumia.com before, and because I'm familiar with the interface of it, I just know some things. I just know where to go and do something. I just know what to expect. I know the kind of, so if there's a sharp change, if there's a sudden change in something in a part of the pages or in a part of the screens or something, I will notice it that, oh, this is some sort of inconsistency. So you want to ensure that you have standards in your design element that guides what you do. So you want to use icons with similar profile. You want to use fonts that are similar. So you don't want to use a serif on your own page. Then you get to one page, maybe another page, and it's a sans serif that you're seeing, or So you want to ensure consistency internally within your product. And that's why we have things like brand guides, you have things like style guides, you have things like design systems. Those things are to ensure internal consistency within your product. Now, the other part is the external consistency. What does external consistency mean? External consistency means that now, because your product is not the only product that you're going to use, right? You want to ensure that as much as possible, you use elements that are consistent with standards in the industry. So there are things called industry standards, right? To say, so for a good example would be the search icon. The search icon is an hand lens, right? It's an hand lens that on any search bar or any product that has the search feature, you would always see the search icon there. That's hand lens. That handless icon, you always see it there. And everywhere you see it, it always means that you can search for something, or this is the time, or you have the ability to search for something. So as much as possible, to help your users navigate getting used to your product or being able to use your product, it is important that your elements achieve some form of external consistency. Of course, it's not like you want to copy or rip off other people's designs, right? But as much as possible, right, you want to be consistent with. So, for example, look at these two screens, right? This is Jumia and this is Konga, right? Excuse me. Now look at the shopping carts on Jumia and shopping carts on Konga. They're different. It's called carts here. It's called my carts here. The buttons that they are on are different, right? But you can look at the shape of this icon. They don't look far apart. So if you've ever seen this as a cart, you will not see this and be confused that this could mean anything that is not a cart. And that is what external consistency means, right? Okay, moving on now, error prevention. But error prevention are things that you do that helps prevent your users from making mistakes, right? Or that help prevent errors in your system. Pretty much. So a good example would be that when you're typing on Microsoft or Google or even if it's on WhatsApp, right, and you type something that is not contained in the dictionary, your text reader automatically puts an underline right under it to point your attention to the fact that this is not recognized in the dictionary. It might be a grammatical error. So those subtle cues are helping your users know that they've made a mistake or there might be an error somewhere, right? Another example is the password strength thing, right? Now, ideally, it's important for you to set up a password that is strong and and it's hack proof, right? Now, while you're creating that password, right, there's something that already tells you, or if you, in some cases you see some boxes or some boxes that your password has to check. Say it must be 8 characters strong, it must contain this, it must contain that, it must contain this. So those are some cues, right, that help prevent you from making errors, help prevent you from setting a password that is weak and can be hacked easily, right? And that's another example of how you prevent errors, right, and for your users, right? One other thing is recognition rather than recall. And this is a very vital part of usability, a very vital usability heuristics, right? Now, there was an argument on Nigerian design Twitter months ago about, oh, should we label our icons? Instagram don't have the icons labeled and people use it very, very well and all of that stuff, right? Right now, but we need to understand is important. Look at all of the icons that on the side, right? If you've never used, I can bet you that out of 12 icons here, this icon, what could this icon mean? You will not, nobody will get 12 or 12. Nobody will. Because these icons are not, they are not necessarily descriptive or they could mean different things, right? So what that means is it is important to help your users recognize something rather than have to recall what this thing looks like. So now, this, if I'm showing you this first icon, you have the job of trying to recall where you've seen something that looks like this and what that thing means, right? But in this case, okay, I'm just going to stop my mic. All right, let me know if it's any better. I'm just going to keep speaking. Hopefully, it's a lot better. All right, so now if I'm showing you for the very first time, and I don't have all of these labels around it. You are going to have to first identify what this would mean, or what does it look like. First, recall where you've seen this, right? Then try to recall what it looks like and what it might mean in the context. And that is a long time for you to master what this might mean, what all of these different things might mean, right? But in this case, because it is labeled, so you can easily recognize that, okay, what this guy is saying is this icon is for inbox, and you can just go ahead and just use the product easily. Same thing for all of the other icons. So recognition is you including things that help your user recognize what a particular element in your design is meant to do, right? As against them trying to recall, something blank out of the air. What could this icon mean? How can I use this icon? Right, so recognition rather than, and a good example of that is labeling your icons. I am pro labeling icons every day of the year. You should practice labeling your icons. It helps, it gives your users all of the context they need to be able to use a product. All right, okay. Next one, flexibility and efficiency of use. And this is a very interesting thing. And over time, as you guys keep practicing and keep trying to design products, you get used to a lot of these things, and you can keep going back, look at your whatever it is that you've designed. I mean, these things could, in a way, could sound like, oh, big, and you might be not be completely relatable, right? But with a lot of practice, right, you would get it, you will get there, right? And also, you also need to get comfortable spotting some of these things in product, right? So if Apple or any software gets released today, what I want to look at is, oh, what are the some of the usability heuristic? How are these products helping me? Are they trying to help me use this product? Right? In what way? What are they doing? You know. So I want to look at for some. So it's important that you get used to some of these things, right? Because they will. By the time you get used to spotting them in products, you would also subconsciously want to put them in your own design by the time you start designing your product, right? So now, flexibility and efficiency of use. Right? This is another important thing. Right? Now think about what Google is, what Google search is, right? Google search is one of the most powerful search engines in the world, right? It's one of, I mean, it's a very powerful search engine. You can search for literally anything, right? And you find it. Now imagine that area where you type in, you go to google.com and it just gives you a text field where you just type in what you're looking for and you enter. Imagine that is not the way it was designed. Imagine that it was designed as a library of all the words categorized under all the words that start with A, or anything that start with A categorized under A, and anything that start with B categorized under B, and just different categories of A, B to Z, and numbers and all of those things like that. Right. And you have to get to think about the way we navigate through the manual dictionary that we used to have that year. Right. So you pick a paper dictionary and you keep flipping through all of the pages to look for, okay, this is A, this is AY, you know, and you're looking for in all of the words that start, you know, the way you flip through a dictionary, right? As against you just having an interface where you just search for the word that you're looking for and you just find it, right? So products use some things called accelerators, right, to help drive the efficiency and flexibility of use of their products. So think about it like this, right? Rather than, I mean, imagine that's how you have to search through a word or something that you're looking for on Google. It's going to take a longer time for you to find something because you're going to first look, okay, so this word starts with Y, and I go to the tab on Google that has Y. I flip through it, oh, it's YE, is, you know, and I keep trying to narrow it down. It takes me a longer time, but right now, all I just go to do is just press YEAR or whatever it is I want to search, press my enter button, and it gives me a myriad of options of things that might be looking for that relates to what I just searched for. Right? No, accelerators are things that you put in your products that help users use your product effectively, right? Think about how your Spotify, from this example, you know, how it has I mean, there's the home, there's the browser, there's really there are a bunch of other things I've added on the side like this, but Spotify allows to search. Right? It allows them to search for stuff, right? And being able to search for stuff means that I don't have to go through the hassles of browsing through the different genres or the different artists or whatever it is that on Spotify before I'm able to spot a particular song. I could just go in there, search, right? And I have my result and I'm able to play my music in within seconds. So accelerators are things that, you know, help you use products flexibly and efficiently. All right. Aesthetics and minimalist design. This is another very important heuristics of usability, right? Aesthetics and minimalist design. Again, I think I've mentioned this before that when you're designing, it is super important, right? That your interface is easy to interact with. It means that people get to the interface of your product and they get the message that they need to get. They see what leads them to where they should go, right? So they see all of those things immediately, right? They don't struggle to find what they want to find. They don't struggle to see, you know, what they are looking for, right? And that is why minimalistic design is a thing. It's a big deal, But even when you have a large amount of information to pass across, there's a way you can design it in the most minimal way where you pick the most essential things that need to be on that screen and you put it on that screen and you're just able to interact with it. As against packing things that are not necessary. Look at a classic example of a minimalistic design is this Google search page, right? I'm not sure that this some of this coming. Now, a good example. A good example is the fact that you get here and all that you need to search for what you're searching for are the things that are on this interface. You don't nothing. Every other thing that are not important are just somewhere subdued at the corners and all of that stuff. They're also important, but they are not the primary reason you would probably just want to come to search Google. 99% of people that come to Google want to just type in what they are looking for here and just move on. Right? So it is important to communicate and not decorate. Right? Communication in this case would mean that you're putting the most important and the most essential thing that needs to be on your product, you're putting it there. And your users are able to interact with that. And they don't have any, their design is not cluttered, they don't find it confusing. All right? Okay. All right, we are almost at the end of this slide. Right. Help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors, right? So we talked about visibility of system status earlier, right? This is more like a second part to it, right? So which is that when people are using products, they often run into errors or they often run into situations where they don't understand what is going on, right? Now, it is important for you to first let them know what is going on, right? Tell them what they can do to get out of that error, right? So it's important. So for example, a typical example of that is user trying to log in their account, right? They type in the username, on Twitter, you type in your handle, but you want to enter your okay, you're trying to set up your account rather, you type in your handle, you want to enter your phone number, but the format is invalid. In some cases, think about this telling you something like, oh, there's an error occurred somewhere, or something is wrong, and it didn't tell you that it's your phone number, it didn't tell you it's your password, right? So you're wondering what is wrong. You're trying to wonder what's wrong, what happened here, why am I supposed, you're lost. You're wondering what's going on and how you can get out of that situation. But in this case, right, when you've helped your user recognize that, okay, this is the error, right? You've entered an invalid phone number. Please enter a valid phone number. So in this one statement, you've helped your user first recognize the highlighted, right, to show you that it's wrong, something has gone wrong, right? And with this text, you've told them that, oh, this is the error, and this is how you can get out of the error, right? So you help your users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Clearly inform users when an error has occurred, tell users what went wrong, and offer a solution to the user. So think about error 404 page. An error 404 page should not just be error 404 page or say, oh, we can't find what you're looking for. Or it should be, you can't find what you're looking for, maybe with some suggestions. So are you looking for this? Is this what you're looking for? Or go home, or something like that. It just helps you get out of that particular error state that you are at that time. All right. And lastly, help and documentation, right? And when creating product, when designing product, it's important to create a place where your users can get help. It is super important for you to create a spot or a place where users can easily, get help. And that's why most companies would have their customer support, or they will have their help centers, or we have FAQs, or you have, some sections of the website where you can easily access help, right? Without, easy access help, really, about whatever it is that you're looking for. So for example, it's a good example, it is GoDaddy, right? So they have help centers, right? It just provides information about the different things that you might be having issues with, or want to know more about your account management, about your domain, about your smart lines, you can just come here, read more about them, and you get it, and you can use the product better. Right? Again, to go back and recap from where we started from, it's very important. Usability. The user needs to be when we define user experience, we mentioned that it's process supporting user behavior, usability, and desirability, right, provided in the interaction with the product. Now, it is very important. Any product that people cannot use is not a product. It's just a decoration. It's just something that's just, in fact, a decoration has a use. It has an aesthetic role that is playing, right, and achieving a purpose. So, but if people can't use your product, if for some reason you get there and they can't achieve what they want to, your product is not usable, right? They would bounce. They would use a competitor's products, right? And you won't be able to make money, and they won't be able to achieve their goal. You won't be able to make money, and everything goes down the drain. So it's important that you understand all of these heuristics and how to work them into your designs, right? To be able to create usable products, right? So I'm just going to quickly go through I'm short for time, but I'm just going to quickly try and design. I'm just going to show you guys how you can I'll design like an onboarding page for a product, right? And I'll show you how some of the things that we talked about around the interface and how we just put together how we just culminate in the experience of the product, right? Just give me a second. But if you have questions, please, by all means, just drop the questions on the chat. I'm going to answer as many as I can. I already have a question that says, can you have a link? Olale says, can you have a link to read up on this? Yes, I would. I will for the link and share before. And because I understand that you guys are beginners, and there's a whole lot that goes into creating a product that we obviously cannot talk about in 2 hours. It's literally impossible, right? Like I mentioned, or you get closer. A lot of practice every day and all of that. You get closer and closer and closer and closer, right? Now, it's important that you know that one of the best things you can do for yourself as a designer is to practice. A lot of the top designers that you might know, that you might respect, that people have been designing for years, talk about 10, 15 years and all of that stuff, right? So you want to, as much as possible, you want to practice as well. I mean, it's going to be difficult for you to close a gap between you and a person that you look up to in 10 days or some weeks. But like I believe that the best time to start was yesterday. The next best time to start is now, right? So you want to start designing a lot now. Like you can go on a sprint of, say, every single day you must do one kind of design or the other, right? And that's going to greatly help you improve your skill as a designer, and of course your understanding of design. Now, also it's also important to mention that design is both understanding of all of these concepts that we've discussed, and you being able to use the tools, being able to practice and put stuff together pretty much, right? So your strength as a designer is not just measured about what you know or what you can say about design. You also measure it about what you can do. Can you actually do functional and beautiful user interfaces, right? So it's a balance of the two, right? So it's important. So to answer your question, Fortune, what's the best way to learn UI UX tools like Figma? So for Figma, again, I would say there are a bunch of tutorials online, right, that you can check, right? But for Figma, Figma is I find it very simple to use. Of course, maybe because I've been designing for a long time. I mean, for some time, not so long compared to some other people, right? I find Figma quite easy to use. So I think that it's the simple interface. So you can just play around with it, right? I'm going to show you a bunch of things now, like around about the interface of Figma and, getting started and all of that stuff. Designing 1 or 2 screens now, right here and, before we go. But then you need to just touch up on the interface, practice, play around with it, right? Make mistake, get stuck, and find somebody somewhere that knows how to use Figma and ask them, well, I'm trying to do this, but I can't do it. How do I do it, right? So you just need to practice a lot, practice. So the best way to learn a tool like Figma is to practice. Start using Figma for example, every day, right? I recommend something a lot to younger designers that are just starting out. Daily UI challenge. So daily UI challenge has received a lot of banters and bashing over the last few months, but it's still a very good tool, right? Because as a designer that you can't use the tools very well, how you get used to being able to use the tool is being able to create simple interfaces, right? Being able to draw a shape, draw that shape, use this text, change the font size, balance, all of those minor things that the daily UI challenge will ask you to do. Being able to do all of those things, right, is what help you improve your skill as a designer, right? So the best way to learn UI UX, to learn a tool like for UI UX like Figma is to keep practicing every day, right? Okay, so let's get into it. I'm just going to design a bunch of screens. And if there's anything I've done that you do not get, just quickly stop me and ask me. So, right, for Figma, there are a bunch of tools that you can see right in front of you here, right? So this is the move tool. You literally use it to move anything, right? There's also the scale tool that is nested inside. You use to scale stuff. So I'm going to show you the difference between the move tool now. So the move tool is usually like the default tool. So once I click on anything, I can move it around, right? Whereas the scale tool is for you to scale an object. So you click it and you scale down. In a lot of cases, you can use the move tool to scale as well. But you need to learn to use the scale to scale. That's a bit confusing. You have to use the scale tool to scale, right? So that because there are a lot of cases where if you are trying to scale with the move tool, you enter problem, right? So in this case, it looks like everything is fine and it's the same thing. But if you start dealing with some other complex things, right, it starts to give you a problem. So there's a move tool where you used to move tools around, then there's a scale tool. The shortcut is key. I know the shortcut, so I just usually use a shortcut a lot to scale and make stuff bigger and smaller and all of that stuff, right? Then there's also this thing called the frame. So the frame is just all of the different backgrounds that you have. There's A4 paper, there's A5, depending on whatever it is that you're designing, there's phone. So for the sake of this class, I'm going to just pick an iPhone 11 Pro or iPhone X, right? For the sake of this. So I have templates, so you can adjust this. So if you know the size of what you're trying to do, you can just pick this and adjust the size to say 500 or whatever it is I want to do, right? But for the sake of this, I'm just going to use this size, right? There are a bunch of things like, okay, there is the rectangle, all of this shape to rectangle, star, these different things. You find them, you see that as you start designing them, you see how I'm going to apply some of them. Then there is the pen tool, right? I used to draw different shapes and all of that. Like the text tool that I used to type. There's the ant tool. Ant tool is for you to pan across your design. So you have a large interface for you that you're putting your design, that you use this to pan across and all of that stuff, right? Then there's a comment tool. So if you are, Figma is a very collaborative tool, which means that you can work on a design and maybe somebody is reviewing your design and you just drop a comment there and you get there and so it says give feedback, ask question, or just leave a note of appreciation. Yeah, pretty much. So I'm just going to go into it now. What I'm trying to design is something I've done before. I'm just going to try and design it to show you guys some things around designing user interfaces and all of that stuff. So starting out, again, it was also important to mention that if I'm going to design an interface, there are a lot of other things I would have done. I would have probably designed the logo for the product, or there will be a logo, I'll have created a style guide and a lot of those other things. But because we don't have a lot of time, I'm just going to skip all of that and just jump into showing you guys this. So the product I'm designing, the name of the product is Received. Sorry. Doesn't type the name like you're saying Received. That's the name of the product. Say 21. Okay, so you receive something to just put at the top here. And before I start, there's one thing I always do, right? Is my space. Now, whenever you are designing, you need to understand that your design, any design, right, and by extension, or even more importantly in UI design, is a balance of your elements with the shape, with the space that you're working with, right? So one thing I first do before I even start putting any element or any logo, if I've started, I will just retrace my step and just bam. I'll first draw my border lines or my guides, right? Let me just show you. So what I first do, I do it in the most cool of ways. I draw a rectangle at the top corner. Usually use my rectangle with 32 pixels, a square rather, 30 by 32 pixels, right? The square. I ensure that I put it at the top corner of the screen. It's perfectly at the top corner. You can see, right? This red thing just shows me that it's perfectly aligned at the top corners, right? Then I will pick my guide. So picking my guides is clicking on this ruler here. So there you can see there's a ruler here, there's a ruler. I pick it, I draw my guide out. So I pick this rectangle again, draw it to this side. I pick my guide again, draw it to this side. Now, okay, then do the same for the top and the bottom, right? And okay, and like that, I have my guide. So whatever I'm working, my design, none of my elements go outside this space, right? So I ensure that my design strictly uses this space that I've drawn. So there's some breathing space for my design, right? So what I want to design is a bunch of what's it called? A bunch of say splash screens, right? Or say a bunch of onboarding screens. So for this product is a product that helps you scan a receipt, right? And you scan a receipt and turn it into a PDF format, right? That's what the product does, right? So I'm just going to design the initial pages for the product. So let me just I'm going to pick a text. Before, like I mentioned before I started, I would have picked the kind of font I want to use and define the colors and all of those things. So I'm just going to say track and sort your expenses. So this is part of the text. This is let's see, I think this one something. Okay. So, okay. All right, so I have this text typed out. Then I have some short text. The short sheet. I got say my font is 16. So, right. Right. So change this one to okay. So I have this as again, a lot of considerations I usually would put in place when doing all of this, but for the lack of time, I'm just going to I'm skipping all of this to just decide on the go and just do what I have to do, right? Okay, so the next thing is to say have a button that says next. Okay. Okay. And so let's say an arrow travel. Since you can't, as much as possible, you can follow what I'm doing, please do. I'm going to try and explain all of the things I'm trying to show you and why they are important for you to some of those things. All right. Arrow. Just waiting for this to be. Okay. So let me just show you a bunch of colors mindlessly now because okay. Just going to let's quickly jump this. Okay. Okay. Right. Um, I'm going to bring one more thing in. I'll be done with this page. Same illustrations. Mm, okay. Mm, okay. Um, so in this case, this receive text that will be here at the top here is what's going to be the logo. If we add one for this brand, right? And this is like a bunch of things. So there's something called pre-onboarding screens. And these are for you guys trying to log into the app or sign up on the product. You can see the first couple of things that you see, right? This is what it might look like, right? So let me just keep to design like a quick page for where you sign up, where user will sign up and all that text here. I can get started. Okay, so I'll bring our button here. Buttons. So you can see what I have here. Creating my button now. So, yeah, one thing I wanted to show you guys was that a lot of the screen that there's so far, typing text, putting them together, balancing them in space, and just making them look as compact as possible, right? Lastly, I'm just going to run one last page now, and then I will wrap up this section. So I'm going to design the login, let's do login screens, right, for this product now. So let's see. Details. Right. Okay. So I'm going to draw a line. That is going to be this line, this line. So this is C5. Okay. And this one again is that. Okay. Also, comment section. If you have any other question, please. Okay. So, okay. Right, I'm going to have some. Okay. Next step would be something like the password. Okay. Getting closer to what I'm trying to use to underscore my points now. Now, let's switch things up a bit. So, um, okay. Right. So, number of key important things, right? Yeah. So I have these three screens now. Now let me take the screen out and delete this. Right. Now, between these two screens, I can maybe answer the question. So between these two screens, now this screen allows me to log into my account, right? And this other screen does not. This other screen also allows me to log into my account. But these two screens have slightly different caveats. So the very first caveat of this screen is that this one gives me an extra option of if I've forgotten my password, I can proceed to reset my password. So I click on this forgot password and I go ahead and reset my password. But on this other screen, there's nothing like that. So let's say I get here and I keep entering, keep entering the password I can remember, and it's just not working, right? I'm wondering that, oh, what's going on? I'm wondering what do I do next? I'm lost. I don't know what to do next. But yeah, this product or this screen gives me an option for me to reset my password. So I go ahead, reset my password, then I continue to log in and I continue to enjoy the experience. But in this case, the experience here is broken because I can't remember my password, which means that I can't progress into using the product. You can see how what is present on the interface here determines my experience. At this point, I'm stuck because I can't move on because for some reasons, the designer of this interface is not providing me with an option to recover my password if I've forgotten my password. Whereas in this case, this person provided me with that option and, I can go ahead. Now, also in this other case, um, this screen provides me with the option to hide or review my password as I'm typing. Whereas this one gives me the option, does not give me that option. So as I'm typing my password, I have to ensure that I type my password correctly so I don't make a mistake, right? I mean, and as I keep typing, the password is hidden. It's hidden as stars or as dots. So you can see how from the interface, the experience or my experience as a user is determined, and that is how you use the interface, and that is the merging point between user interface and user experience, right? And that is how you can design your interface to help your users achieve what they want to achieve. So a bunch of actions that you're creating or a user as they move into designing the products, right? And how those actions help a user achieve what they want to achieve are the things that sum up together to form their experience. All right. So yeah, that summarizes it. Just to answer Darius' question. So I think that Webflow is a very great tool. I think I use Webflow a lot. I'm not so great on tools, right? Aside Figma, Adobe XD, say InVision a couple of times, and Webflow. I am not so great on so many tools, but I find Webflow very useful. And I think that it helps me as a designer to actually, push the bounds of my work as far as possible, right? To say, I've created this design, but the only issue I have with Webflow is that I usually have to do the double work of doing the design first in Figma, then going to Webflow to prototype, right? But it's even, which is not so much of an issue, right? But rather, Figma gives me a way to convert my design directly to code without having to meet a developer. I would not need to use Webflow. But right now, when Figma doesn't allow that, I still appreciate Webflow because I can do my design, write the code, put it out in Webflow, then send it out to finish it up, export my code or do whatever it is I have to do, and it's as perfect as I want it to be. So yeah, I think Webflow is a great tool. I just don't think that it successfully replaced Figma for me because personally I like to do my designs first, see all of the details before I take it to Webflow. Or whereas I'm not able to use Webflow enough to to actually start a design from scratch and get it done. These are my thoughts. I think one other person asked for me to share. I am going to just look for that right away. Usability heuristics. If you have any other question, please let me know. I found the link, and I'm going to drop it in the chat now. So yes, you can read up on it here. So yeah, thank you very much. If there are questions, please ask questions. If not, thank you very much for listening. Also, I hope you learned one thing or the other. I hope you are inspired enough to start your journey as a designer. And again, I've taken it up as a personal uh, um, job rather to encourage designers. If you like, design is a very important part of our world, right? Everything is designed. Products, like I mentioned, everything is designed. Everything is designed. Nothing is by error. Nothing is by mistake. God is a designer. You see the way the world is designed. Everything is designed, right? So you need to understand how to put up product, how to design for people, people in mind, design for them, right? Pay attention to what you're doing, understand the fact that what you're doing is so important, right? It is very, very important to people surviving, to people, doing stuff, right? And people being able to achieve their business goals, their personal goals, and a lot of different things. Once you understand that and you're able to walk yourself through that, I think you're on a journey. Okay. Want to know about the computer later. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to reach out to me in the slides, I'm usually very open and very. You can reach out to me on Twitter is at Aluko Brown on Twitter, or you can. My website is pretty much just leads you to my Twitter or any of my social media pages, my LinkedIn or my Instagram. I usually reply as fast as I can, right? So I teach design as student. So I don't host personal tutorials because of my schedule. I don't host personal tutorials. I just honor invitations like this once in a while. And yeah, pretty much. But hopefully by next year, I'm able to clear some recurring things of my schedule and be able to create. I've actually been working on something like that with a friend, and we've just not been able to finalize it. We're going to create a from zero to pro for designers, right? It's at the token. We've not decided the price, but it's going to be at the token as well. But that's in the works. But for now, I don't do it. I mean, I don't do it yet. But hopefully, very soon by next year, hopefully before the end of the first quarter next year, we'll have something like that. But if you have questions or you need resources or you need my feedback or you need my thoughts on something, please, any of my social media is usually very open. DM on Twitter, on IG, on LinkedIn as well. I will definitely reply you. Yeah, so I wish you guys are the very best. Yeah, and also, okay, I think like I mentioned, I teach design as student. So if you're interested, student is a graduate accelerator program. I'll pretty much just prepare young graduates, or in fact, graduates or young people, pretty much, or anybody that is interested in pivoting into tech. There are courses for user interface and user experience design. It's about it's a 16 weeks course, very intensive, heavy on practicals and assignments and all of that stuff. You can sign up as well. We just and we're going to finish the cohort for this year. The second cohort for this year will finish. Their last class is next week Wednesday. I have a class tomorrow with them. Then another last class next week Wednesday. Then they'll do a bunch of assignments and all of that. Then also student, not me now. My job is to teach. Then student, helps them get a job in the market and all of that stuff. So it's a good opportunity for you to check out if you're interested. If you want to wing it and maybe be a freelancer and want to learn a lot of different things. And also it's important to mention that I also learned design. I learned design, and a lot of the things I know about UX, I learned them on my own. I mean, I'm not self-taught because I had people that I walk up to and ask questions every now and then, right? But I usually watch a lot of tutorials, practice a lot, and that's why I kept my mind on practice. I practice a lot, watch a lot of tutorials, play around with different things, and just create as much as possible, right? And if at any time you need to answer questions, or you need some materials or some tutorials or some resources, I would gladly be on ground to answer your questions. I'm just a DM away. Yeah, so that's really that. I wish you guys all the very best and your journey. Thank you very much. Derek, I think you can take over now.
All right, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll continue our conversation where we can, and thank you once again, Aluko Brown. We really appreciate what you've done here with us this evening. So, guys, connect with him. There's so much you can learn. All right, bye for now. Have a beautiful evening.